So one of the things that happened, I noticed in the last 10 years when the economy was booming, tech was taking off, everything was going great. Everyone got really used to sitting there in their office and waiting for their Facebook ads to hit, and a bunch of leads would come in, and all they had to do was call the leads. Right?
Yep.
Sure. In boom times, that's great. This is a more uncertain time. We've talked about, right? There's a lot of opportunities still, but things are a little more challenging. And also, everyone is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on online marketing. It's so hard to stand out online. If you have an organic content creation process and people in your community are following you, that's great. But if you're just spending a bunch of money hoping leads are going to come to you, you're doing it wrong.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe.
What is up, everybody? Mike Hickman here, founder of paintergrowth.com, and I am here today with my long-term friend, Mr. Chris Wolf, founder and owner of Wolf&Wolf Construction.
Consulting and Construction.
And Construction. Cool. Just wanted to make sure I got that right. He's been crushing it lately, booking like millions of dollars of work. Recently launched a sales accelerator that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But today, we're going to give you guys a special treat and give you 5 ways. We're gonna meander there, but we're going to give you 5 ways to increase your close rate.
Right now
In this call. All right, let's go. Bang, bang, bang. Just kidding. So we're gonna meander there. Obviously, we're gonna provide that value. We're gonna pull that out of you. But I want people to get the most value out of it. So we've got to have a discussion. So I guess, Chris, give me a background on what's going on with your trades business, your construction business, and kind of how that has been going over the last 2 years.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like everybody else, right? We rode the wave in 2021, 2022. Things were smooth. Last year, 2023, some headwinds. What's really funny about 2023, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Mike, I feel like the conditions were better than the attitude. Like the prevailing consumer sentiment in 2023 was like, oh, things are bad. I don't know if I want to spend money right now. Do I have to? Right? And it's like, well, the underlying conditions were actually still pretty decent, but attitude was bad.
Man, that is such a good way to explain what actually happened in 2023. And I was talking about that all year because the media, if you watch CNN or whatever, it's like, we're going into a recession. It's going to be terrible. No, like tighten in your purse strings. And I think people just kind of caught on to that awful sentiment and lived it. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. And they were scared, right? Especially if you have a regular job, and you go home for the day and you look on the news is like, recession inbound, watch out, you're in trouble, right? So I think there was a lot of that.
Dude, I had so many clients had their best years of their lives last year, made hundreds of thousands of dollars profit, and just great years. Yep.
Because the underlying conditions were actually still pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, just one more thing I want to say on that is this January, actually, I was at a franchise group national event or like annual conference, and I was speaking at it. But the very first, like the intro, the CEO or whatever did this like intro speech, and he started off with basically doom and gloom. All right, guys, we got to buckle in. This is going to be a tough year. The economy's down. Lead services are slow. People are tightening. Like it's going to be a tough year. And then like he went on and that's how he started the conference. And then I spoke a couple hours later and I was like, remember when he said, that's all wrong. Does not have to be like that. You are in control of your own destiny. And it can be like that if you just rely on lead services and don't do the things that you got to do, but definitely doesn't have to be like that.
Totally. And so I think that's what I'm seeing in 2024 with the clients I'm working with and in my own business is, people are kind of belatedly realizing like, okay, the sky didn't fall. The economy didn't crash. Unemployment is like sub 4%, at least in the States. I don't know about Canada.
It's very low.
Right.
Like it was impossible. It's like sub 2% or something. Like everyone's saying it was impossible for it to be that low.
Yeah. I was reading this article the other day. It's like, don't worry about Gen Z because they can have whatever job they want. It's the tightest labor market in history. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that's kind of where we've been at is we've been seeing kind of sentiment improving, even though conditions are about the same as what they were last year, right? Like interest rates haven't changed in months, at least with the US Fed. I don't know about Canadian again, but right, like things have been pretty stable, and I think
We
people are
deal with
finally
most of the U.S. clients anyway, so we're good.
perfect. But I think customer sentiment is starting to come back around, and a little bit of like a new normal, right? Like, okay, well, maybe there's a recession, maybe not, I don't know, but I still need to get my house painted.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's one of the best things about being in this industry. You know, maybe for a year or two you can put it off, or you can, you know, stick your fingers in your ears and go no 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 no. But eventually you're gonna need to paint your house.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's like paint your house now, or like, you know, pay the price down the road when you actually got to like replace your siding or something. So,
Yeah.
I mean, home maintenance is always going to be required. And I always feel like even if we did go into a recession, which I don't particularly believe we're in one, painting is like literally the cheapest form of renovation. People want a renewed inside feeling in their house. They want to freshen things up. Like
Yep.
they're going to paint. And also the labor market, or sorry, the real estate market is so crazy right now, right? Everywhere.
Still.
Things are just bumping. I'm looking for a house right now, and like one day things are gone. Bidding wars, multiple offers, and people are painting these houses. You move into a new house, first thing you want to do is paint. These are projects that are happening, and why aren't you doing them?
Every real estate agent will tell you before you list your house, you need to paint the exterior
And the
right,
interior.
and the interior a lot of times. Yeah. Exactly. So I think the recession, even if we did hit a recession, it's baloney. I started painting houses in 2010. In the depth of the worst recession is since who knows how long, right? I don't know how exactly they measure these things, but it was way worse than anything we're dealing with right now. And houses were still getting painted, right? People still needed it. So I think that's been my message to my painter clients, my other contractor clients is like, people need our service. We're still in the game. You know, pick your chin up, look forward, let's go. Let's do this.
Yep. Absolutely. So how much like in this market, what type of like year-over-year growth are you guys seeing in you're doing, I know you're doing some roofing stuff, but what kind of types of projects do you guys take on at Wolf and Wolf?
Yeah, so Wolf and Wolf, like I said, I started in paint, so that's always been my baby. I'll never stop painting houses. My wife makes fun of me for it. But yeah, we do roofing, we do siding, we do decks, we do pretty much everything on the outside. And the nice thing about that is that all of that stuff ends up needing paint, right? You replace the roof, you do a bunch of the plywood, all the eaves now around the house are bare wood and they need to be painted, right? So paint kind of goes with everything. So really, I'm always bringing painters in on almost every project I'm working on.
Yeah. And how much, like, what did you guys do last year in terms of like gross sales?
Yep. So I've got like an interesting model, but for me personally, on top of everything else, I sold 1.7 million, and that was up about 200,000 or 300,000 over the year before. And that was me running my sales course, running my other stuff, and then just doing those sales on the side. I still went up, you know, however much percent, 200,000 or 300,000.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. So what do you? Let's just like, I don't want to jump right into the 5 strategy, but like, what do you feel is important when closing deals on the spot in sales? Like, what are some of the things that are just like absolute non-negotiables people need to have going on in their sales process before they even get started?
This doesn't count as one of the tips because it is gospel, non-negotiable, both homeowners. The end.
For sure.
Yep. I'm like intentionally leaving a pause here. I want everyone at home to think about this. Both homeowners, the end. Unless, you know, there's another sales guy, and he has this analogy like every once in a while you run into an 800-pound person, and that 800-pound person isn't going to be able to walk around the house with you, right? And you have to adjust your sales process. But, you know, for the 99.999% of people that are less than 800 pounds, they'll be able to get out and walk around the house with you, right? So for the 99.999% of people that you can do both homeowners, make sure that you're presenting to both homeowners. Sure, every now and then there's going to be one, right? But most of the time when people are like, can you just email me? It's not because they can't meet with you. It's because they're brushing you off.
Yep. Absolutely. So the sale doesn't start from at presenting the price, right? The sale starts at, you know, the call ahead of time is like selling the client on why they should have both homeowners there.
Yep. So that was going to be one of my big tips. We can dive into it, right? But one of the things that I see across all trades, across our entire industry, but especially with painters, is that no one does a real pre-qualifying call. No one does that. No one. Yeah, this is what a typical call will sound like. Stop me at home if you've heard this before. Hey, is this Mike?
It is.
Hey, Mike, this is Chris with Chris's Painting. I heard you want to get a paint estimate. I can swing by Thursday sometime after 4. Does that work?
Yeah, we should be home.
Okay, cool. See you then. Bye.
Yeah, that's the typical one.
Right. And, I can say this. I'm guilty of it myself. I've done it before. But I can tell anybody at home listening, that is the wrong way to do it. You don't know anything about their project. You don't know how serious they are. You don't know when they need it done. You haven't set the expectation that you need both homeowners there, that you're going to present a price, that you're going to ask for their business. You have left so much meat on the bone. Then you're going to drive all the way across town at 4 p.m. on Thursday, and you're going to get there and find out they need 2 window frames painted. And only one of the homeowners is even there. And you're going to give them some stupid price to paint the 2 window frames. And they're going to be like, oh, I got to talk to my spouse. Sorry. And you're going to be so mad.
Yep. And that is if they're, or they'll go home and they'll send them an email with the price
Right.
of the 2 window frames.
Yeah, exactly. And, small projects,
yeah,
you got to do them sometimes, right? But that's not really what we're going for, right? Like when I count sales appointments with my reps, I'm talking full-size projects, both homeowners there, price presented. And you can't have any of that without a proper setup call.
All right. So yeah, we also are big proponents of the setup call. The setup call that we teach is called the lights out setup call, probably similar to yours. But what are the steps that you think, or you guys teach, or you feel have to be present in your setup call?
So good questions, right? There's going to be 2 types of questions, right? There's going to be the basic questions, what are we doing? Exterior. Okay. Have you picked colors? This and that, right? And then there's going to be more important questions, the deeper questions. Part 2 is deeper questions. Best one, I'll give you right now. Ask this every time you talk to a prospective sale. What's your long-term plan for the home? Right? So what I see in the industry, people who start doing these calls, right? And they're like, yes, I'm doing the calls, Mike. I'm doing what you told me to do. I'm making these calls. Things are getting better. A lot of times people stick to the basic questions, right? But then you got to get those next level questions. Why are you getting the house painted? What is that coming from? Where are you going with this? Are you buying? Are you selling? Have you lived here for 20 years? Are you going to live here another 20 years? Right? What's your long-term plan for the house is a great gateway into that conversation.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Your basic questions, your deeper questions, and then it's really important to set expectations. I think that's when people ask the questions, that's another thing that they miss a lot, right? Hey, I'm going to be at your house for 1 to 2 hours. Maybe an hour to an hour and a half if you're pretty good. And I am going to meet with you. I'm going to sit down at the table. I'm going to ask you some additional questions. We're going to walk all the way around the house together. We're going to look at everything. I'm going to go back to my truck. I'm going to calculate a price for you. After a few minutes, I'll come back into the home. I'll review the bid with you. And of course, I'm going to ask for your business because we do want to work with you. Now that you've set that expectation, when's a good time to catch you and the missus? Right?
Perfect. Yeah.
Because nobody does that. And the problem is when you start to sell at that level, customers aren't ready for it because no one else is selling at that level, right? If you're the contractor right now who you show up, you take some pictures, you shake hands, you email them a price 6 days later, that's a lot of people. So when you start to evolve past that, when you start to operate at a higher level, customers will frequently still think that you're one of those other contractors who's just going to be there for 5 minutes and email a bid in 6 days.
Yep.
So you have to set that expectation really clearly. Like, this is not your typical paint estimate, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. I'm legit. I'm serious. This is what's going to happen. This is how we're different than all those other guys.
And pretty much I'm not really coming over to do an estimate. I'm coming over to book a job.
Yep.
We're going to do the work. We'd like to do this work for you. So by the end of the estimate, are you going to be ready to, if you feel like this is my favorite trial close, and I want to hear yours too, but if you feel like you can trust us and you feel like we're going to do a good job and the price is fair, are you going to be ready to book in with us?
Nice. I like that. I'll usually, for me, on the bottom of my setup call sheet, I have a little one that prompts me, and it says something like, it's like blank, blank, and blank, right? So I like to fill in what they said. Like, hey, Mike, sounds like you need to get this job done by June for your daughter's graduation party. Budget is important, but it's not the most important. The timeline is the most important. If I can show you that we're going to get this done on time and to your specifications, would you be ready to get on our schedule?
Perfect.
I like to put the sprinkle in what they said on the call. So I take the notes as I go and then fill in the blanks from their words.
Yep, solid. So we do a great setup call. That was the first one. That was the first tip, first
That's
strategy.
the number one tip you can implement right
There we
now
go.
with every lead that comes in. Take 5 to 10 minutes and do an actually in-depth setup call so that the appointments are worth going to and that you book more of them when you get there.
Big time. And I would say just like a bonus point to that is you're never too experienced to follow a script or to follow an outline. Even if you've done 1,000 of them, like have that outline in front of you. Number one, you're not going to miss any steps. And number two, it's going to take way less mental energy from you because you're just following a process instead of trying to remember everything every step of the way.
Yeah. And for the people who are doing this, the next level, right? Like, you know, those memes on the internet where the brain gets like more and more and more, right? The next level is to type up your own. They're like, hey, you use the one from Mike, you use the one from me, you use the one from some other guy that you met, and you get comfortable with it and you find out what works for you and what doesn't. Then you can go ahead and make your own.
Awesome. All right. Step number 2, strategy number 2 that you can do right now.
Get off digital.
Explain.
So there are headwinds, right? There's sentiment, interest rates are high. There's all sorts of, there's like good things and bad things, right? So one of the things that happened, I noticed in the last 10 years when the economy was booming, tech was taking off, everything was going great. Everyone got really used to sitting there in their office and waiting for their Facebook ads to hit, and a bunch of leads would come in, and all they had to do was call the leads. Right?
Yep.
Sure. In boom times, that's great. You know, this is a more uncertain time. We've talked about, right? There's a lot of opportunities still, but things are a little more challenging. And also, everyone is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on online marketing. It's so hard to stand out online. If you have an organic content creation process and people in your community are following you, that's great. But if you're just spending a bunch of money hoping leads are going to come to you, you're doing it wrong. Sales professionals, not the company, sales professionals, frontline sales professionals need to be out there doing the ground game, doing the special ops. Like the digital, so, you know, basically there's 3 parts to a good marketing plan these days, right? You got your ground game, your digital game, and your special ops. Everyone is relying on the digital. Digital's fine, but it's saturated. If you want to get leads, high quality leads that are ready to book with you, you need to get out there in the field. You know, when's the last time you put some signs in a neighborhood? When's the last time you knocked on some doors around a project that the guys were doing? You booked the job, the crew comes out to paint it. What are you doing? Are you knocking on doors around there saying, hey, those are my guys painting that house over there. Do you want to get a free paint estimate? Right? When's the last trade show you worked at? 3 days, 60 leads, boom, done. Right? So, you know, it depends on when people came of age in their marketing journey, in their sales journey. But I'm seeing a lot of people that forget the fundamentals. Before Facebook and Google, we still had to get leads, and there are ways to do that. And they're even more effective now because less people are doing them.
What do you describe as special ops?
Special ops would be anything that's like a one-off, you know, like a flyer campaign in a local neighborhood, or you get a booth at the at the trade show or a farmer's market, right? Yeah. Or there's a little local grocery store and you can do a little promotion with them, like, hey, you know, up to $100 of groceries if you book with us, and whatever, right? Like one-off things that are not something that's part of the regular process.
Cool. Yeah, solid. Like, definitely not relying on inbound lead sources. I think inbound lead sources can play a solid role, 20-30% of your leads. But I think that you do need to, if you want to grow a big business, you got to push.
Well, and they also close at a lower rate. How easy is it when you're messing around on Facebook to click on something? Be like, sure, I'm interested in, jumbo marble run. Yeah, boom. And then you're like, it was 11:30 at night and I don't care. Right? Like, so like if you want to close more leads, part of that beyond just your skill level and your tactics is get better leads. And how do you get better leads? You put in the work as a salesperson, not as a company, as a salesperson. How many of your really great clients from last year have you called up? That's a special ops thing, right? You're not going to do that all the time, but maybe on Tuesday, you can block off 2 hours and you can call your 12 best clients from last year and personally ask for a referral to someone else.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Most like even following up with past quotes people struggle with. And these are like, this is money sitting out there.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to say that. I hope every single person here is tracking their estimates and quotes from the years before that didn't give them an answer and are calling them, April, May, June. Well, no, really probably March, April, May. They're like, hey, did you ever get that paint job done? Oh, great. Okay. I'm going to be in the neighborhood. Do you want me to come by and give you a revised quote? Boom. Money.
Yep. Nailed it.
So the tip itself is get off digital, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, man. That's a big one. And people are just, I think, intimidated or maybe scared to do kind of like that hard thing. Like I have a client right now. One of the strategies we recommend is we have like a process to get a hold of like property managers and realtors and builders and like getting those commercial repaints. He's got like a girl in his office doing it, and she's not having any success with it. And so he's blaming the system not working, not the method in which that he has like delegated it to a less experienced team member.
Sure.
So there's like a training opportunity, like do the thing first, like learn how to do it yourself, get a result doing it yourself, and then you can create that process and delegate it.
Yeah, and honestly, if I was chasing big commercial work, I wouldn't delegate that. If you're just cold calling like forever, huge lists maybe, but just like a trade show, it's important that the salesperson is at the trade show talking to these leads as they come in, so that when you call them later, it's like, hey, it's Chris. We met at the trade show over the weekend. Oh, hey, Chris. Yeah, I was hoping you would call. Right? Kind of the same thing. Like most salespeople that I've worked with are trying to get out of what we call prospecting, right? Or farming or whatever, like going for it. But the salespeople that actually do that, they're getting these super high quality leads. So then they do less estimates and they book more work and they have more time. And everyone's like, how are you doing that? Because they're putting in that enough front work to get those leads.
Yeah, metric we like to track is like your dollar bookings per estimate, your average bookings per estimate. So if you're going around and you're closing 1 out of 5 and your average job size is $3,000, you're booking like $750 per estimate or less, $666 per estimate. But if you're closing, up at 40% with like a 5K average job size, now you're looking at like $2,000 per estimate. So you're like dollar per hour is like so much, like over 3 times more impactful, just by having better lead, doing a better sales process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So get off digital, and I guess the subtext of that is personally get off digital.
Personally. All right.
Yeah.
Do the thing. Lay step 3 on me.
Step number 3. This is one of my favorite tips, techniques, tactics. You ever had this happen? You show up to an appointment. You're sure that you did a great call. This is a referral. You already painted a house across the street. You're going to book this job. Everything's going so good, right? And you get there and you show up and there's only one homeowner there. And you're like,
You said she was going to be home.
Oh, yeah, sorry, she had to go pick up the kids. She's gone, blah, 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 blah. How many times do we just plow forward through that anyway? Like,
Or I got to jet out. I know you said I needed to be here, but can you just leave it in the mailbox?
Yep. Oh, I got like 5 minutes. Even when you do a good setup call, right? Sometimes that happens. So the trick number 3, instant success. When that happens to you, pause. Do what you can do, like a site inspection, and then schedule with them another time to come back and meet with them when they're both there and they're both available.
Huge. We call this going from like a 1-step call to a 2-step call.
Yep.
But you just gotta pivot and know like what the outcome is. Like 2 most important things: your setup call and you're presenting on the spot. And if you can't do one of them, if you can't present on the spot, then like just don't push forward. And
so many salespeople are just like, well, I'm here. I'm just going to do it. Hopefully they say yes. Guess what? They won't. Definitely not on the spot. One thing I love about painting is once you've been in the industry for a bit, you can usually prepare a bid on the spot, right? It only takes like 10, 20 minutes, type it up, run the number. It's really simple. At least for like most residential projects, right? And so we just are like so used to the one call close, right? And it's so important. It's so important to check yourself and hold your ground. Because I think that's part when I was young, when I was 21, 22, 23, I would feel like I didn't have any standing to tell the customer anything different. I just was like, well, the customer's always right. I don't know. Okay, sounds good. You leave in 5 minutes and I'll talk to you later. Bye. You know? And then how many of those do you close? 3%, 5%, 7% if you're really lucky, right? Like
time.
Yeah, it's a total waste of your time. So when you find yourself in the field and in a suboptimal situation, trick number 3 to have instant success and make your life better right now as a salesperson is pause and reset. And just tell the customer, okay, cool, no problem. I'll get some pictures. I'll get some measurements. I'll go back to the lab. I'll get the numbers worked out. And then when's a good time for me to come back and meet with you guys? Good news, this second meeting, it's only going to take about 10 to 20 minutes, maybe 30 tops.
Do you know what I like a perspective that I kind of got from this recently on why this isn't so important, just like help the contractor kind of make sense of this? You know, you're potentially presenting them with like a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 decision. And do you think they can make that decision without help, without asking questions, without the person who's responsible for that there? Like it's just so, like, imagine you buying a car, like buying a used car without ever talking to, you know, the owner of that car. You can't ask questions about the history. You can't see how many miles it's got. You can't see like what the interior looks like. You just know the price and what kind of car it is. Like that's, most people would not do that. You know, like you said, maybe 3% of people would do that. But if you want to get to that like 40, 50%, you need to get there and you present, you need to build value. You need to make the value that you're providing greater than the price that they see.
Exactly. And you're not going to be able to do that if you're not there. You have to be there with them.
100%.
And if they throw a curveball at you, you got to be ready. Don't panic, right? That's the problem is people panic. Like, oh, okay. Well, okay. Sounds good. Sorry. I'm just laughing because like I have these like terrible memories of me as a young salesperson out there doing that. And it was just such a profound shift when I started being like, okay, no problem, or reschedule. I have my process. I'm going to stick to my process. This is important. And you may not understand, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, but this is important and we're going to do it this way.
Yeah, who's selling who?
Right. Exactly. And if they really, really, really push back at you, you're probably not going to book that job anyway, dude. They're probably just price shopping and they're going to go with the lowest bid. Some dude who emailed them, you know, whatever price, way under what you're actually selling, because hopefully nobody on this listening to this podcast is competing on price.
One thing I kind of like doing though is like in that situation, you can do a takeaway. If they're like pushing back, it's like, okay, you know what? This is our process. If you're not, you know, open to that process, then we're probably not a good fit. So, you know, I can give you some other recommendations. Some contractors might be better fit for your project. And then if you do that and you give them a takeaway, like some people will be fine, just like go away. But some people will be like, oh, wait a minute. What do you mean you don't want to bid on this project anymore? Like it'll kind of like reset you in that authority position if you can do that takeaway. It's like, okay, maybe actually they don't need me, so I want them.
Right. Yeah, they're like, whoa, what is this? This isn't normal. This is different.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of guys, again, will, you know, just A, that's just their process anyway, or B, they'll just take what the customer said and they're like, okay, we'll deal with it.
There's this book, what is it called? It is about oversubscribed. Have you heard that? Heard that book?
No, I haven't heard that one.
I mean, the concept is like people fundamentally want things that they can't get. So if you call a restaurant or like you hear that a restaurant has like a 3-month wait list, like you're probably going to want to check that out. You know, but if you like walk into a restaurant, it's completely empty. There's nobody there. You're like, maybe I'm not going to eat here. So it's like you subscribe to this, you know, subconsciously you subscribe to this concept of like, if other people are doing it, then I want to do it too. So if you can tell the homeowner, like, you know what, this isn't our process. You know, we don't really need this project. We're going to go move on. You're like, oh, wait, what do you mean? Like, you're not needy for jobs?
Yeah, and it's a position of strength, right? Like think about the contractor's like, oh, okay, doing everything they can, and we can come out next week. It's like, what message does that send to the client?
Yeah.
Versus like, hey, this is my process. This is how we do things. If you're not in it, cool. Like clearly we have enough business. I'm not desperate to compromise my process and my integrity to, deal with whatever BS you're throwing at me.
All right, let's go. Step 4. What are we looking at?
Step 4. All right. This one is highly, highly underutilized. Highly underutilized.
Hypnosis?
Almost. How many times, everybody listening, how many times do you have a customer on a decent sized project? Like, yeah, we got to think about it. Da, 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 da. How many times do you offer them to speak with previous clients of yours?
Just a referral. You're probably not very often.
Right. It's more than a referral, right? It's like a referral plus.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we did a project just like this last year. His name's Dave. He's over on the other side of town. Very similar style house. If you want to talk to him about the experience and what we did to tackle these things, he takes calls from clients for me all the time. Here's his phone number. Give him a call. Ask him or her, or whatever, what it was like working with us.
You know what? Like, it's funny because as a business coach with an online company, we get clients or prospects all the time. They're like, hey, can I just like this sounds really good, but can I speak to a current client of yours? And it's very common, right? And we're like, yeah, sure. Like, what state are you in? What province are you in? What type of business? Like, we'll get you the exact type of person that you want, But yeah, that's actually a huge opportunity to utilize your past clients. And maybe how do you ask your contractors to incentivize their past clients to take these calls? Like, I have a strategy, but I'm wondering what your strategy is.
I don't even do incentive. I just ask it as like a favor. Like, hey, all right, you're the client. I'm the contractor. Hey, Mike, I'm so stoked that you love the paint job. It's been really great working with you. And you left an incredible review on the neighborhood Facebook group. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Quick question for you. Typically I have a lot of clients, a lot of estimates, right? Sometimes people want to speak with past clients. If I check in with you ahead of time, can I give your number out to a few clients to talk about the experience of working with us?
Yeah, I can't imagine you get very many no's.
No, they love it. If they're happy, they're like, yeah. And then they get even happier because they're telling people about how happy they are.
Yeah.
So they just get it's like when you tell a story, and the moose goes from 6 feet tall to 8 feet tall to 10 feet tall to 14 feet tall. However many times you tell the story, right? So they just get happier and happier and happier the more people they talk to. They're like by the 7th person, they're like, Chris was amazing. Like, oh my God, you've never had a painter like this. You should definitely go with him. And they get value out of it. You're not even I think we as a society get a little stuck on money sometimes. And people want incentive to do things, but money's not the only incentive to do things. If you have a happy client who had a great experience and they're, it's an opportunity for them to have a 5-10 minute phone call with some stranger that they're never going to meet to just be like, yeah, I had a great experience. It was awesome. You should go with them too. Then they feel good.
That's awesome.
You just prep them.
I've offered we call TAG calls. So it's like, hey, if you take a referral, we'll get you a Starbucks gift card or something. That can work too. But I like how you kind of set that up, with that expectation. And it's as long as you don't overuse it.
Yeah, you can't give them out to 50 people, right? It's not something that you're going to do with every estimate. But I think a lot of times, there's the for sure yeses and the for sure nos, right? That's not someone that you're going to give phone numbers to. If they're for sure yes, you don't need to sell them anymore. If they're for sure no, there's no point in selling them, right? But there's a good chunk of your sales appointments that are in the middle, right? That are jobs that you want that, haven't decided yet or need a little extra push, and no one's going to inspire trust better than another homeowner, another client who is in the same situation who used your service.
Yep. They
close for you. If you can get them to take or make that phone call, that's going to be probably a 90 to 95% close rate.
Yeah. I feel like most people who ask for that referral probably won't end up calling them.
Yeah, that happens too. When you're like, yeah, call these 3 people. They're so impressed that you have the 3 people that they don't even need to make the call, because obviously if they wouldn't, you're not going to give phone numbers of pissed off clients, right? So if you just have that on deck, some people, it does happen. So in my experience, if you get to that point, a lot of times they'll call. But that does happen where they're like, okay, obviously you're so prepared. You have all these people to call. I don't even question it, right? Because
Yeah.
why would
Actually, I had
you?
a client a couple weeks ago, or I don't know when it was, the other day. We gave him a client to call as like a reference check, and the prospect got back on the phone with like my sales guy. He's like, yeah, I tried calling him a few times. He didn't answer, didn't get back to me, but you know what? I'm sure he wasn't going to say anything bad about you anyways. So like, we're going to move ahead.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
That's huge. And so, like you said, in your current business, you do that a lot. But for some reason in the construction industry, we don't.
for sure.
As an industry. It's like no one's thought of this.
All right, man. Last but not least, what's step 5?
Tip number 5 that you can implement right now in the field. Objection handling. Let's talk about it.
All right.
It's a buzzword. It's always been a buzzword in sales. Objection handling. Just objection handle. Just objection handle. What does that mean? Right? Or how do you do it? So, I mean, as you know, Mike, true objection handling will happen like throughout the process. You surface the objections early on, and then you show them how that's not a problem. But let's say you get towards the end and they have something they're a little unsure about, or they don't quite know. One of the things that I see as a huge problem in objection handling is people try to handle the objection without a commitment. So this tip is get a commitment when you objection handle. What do I mean by that? All right. So, hey, Mike, it sounds like, we're pretty close on this. Sounds like the price meets what you're looking for. And you feel pretty good about my team. Sounds like the biggest issue is that you're a little concerned about the quality of the product. You want to make sure you have a good product. Is that correct?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. So if I can make sure to find the right product that you feel comfortable with and meets your satisfaction, can we get your business?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's what I mean. Get a commitment before you handle the objection. Most of the time in sales, we act like 5-year-olds playing soccer. Oh, there's the objection. Run, go kick it. Right? But and then we try to handle it, but and the customer's like, okay, yeah, thanks for handling it. I'll let you know. Right? So tip number 5, do this in the field right now when you're trying to close jobs, or when you are closing jobs, when you are closing the jobs, get a commitment before you handle the objection. Because then what happens? You handle the objection and it's like, all right, you said, if I did this, you're signing the contract. I did this, let's go. Nothing else holding you back.
So let's do that again on the for a money objection. All right, this is too much money. This is more than we were expecting.
Okay, gotcha. So it sounds like you're pretty happy with with my team. You trust us to do a good job, but it sounds like the money is the main thing holding you back.
Yeah, it's just more than we thought it was going to be.
Okay, cool. So if we can get this down into your ideal budget range, can we get you on the schedule?
Yeah.
Boom. All right, and then you go through it. If it's a couple hundred bucks,
do you discount it, or do you take things off?
It depends on the issue, right? For me personally, if it's within a small range and they're ready to book, yeah, I'll usually do a discounted book. Like if it's $500, sure, whatever. If you start getting into like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 more, then I start looking at like, okay, what can we take out? Do you really need to paint the shed right now, or can we save the shed for later? Okay, cool. We took the shed out. That saved you $1,200. Now we're down under $7,000. Also, before you solve the budget problem, find out what the budget is. So, all right. So if we were going to play this through all the way, you'd be like, Mike, if we can get you, into the right budget, would you feel comfortable going with us?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. So for me to figure that out, you've seen my cards up, everything's on the table. What is the budget that you wanted to hit?
I mean, you're at 7, and we're kind of thinking this is going to be like 4.
Okay, gotcha. So you're thinking 4. What's that coming from? Do you have other bids? Is that just kind of what you're hoping for, or is that the maximum amount of cash you have?
Kathy painted her house last year, and it was 4.
Okay, when that was here in the area or whatever, right? Whoever
My
Kathy
friend
is.
Kathy told me.
Gotcha. So she told you. Cool.
Yep.
And do you know if that contractor was like licensed, bonded, insured, with a warranty, using quality materials and doing all the prep that we do?
I'm not sure, but she said he was real handsome. Like
Right.
real, just going back to my memory bank, like real talk.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so in that situation, right, I'd be like, well, let's see the bid. Let's compare apples to apples. Are you really getting everything that I'm going to be giving you? And then, it's a question of like, all right, do you want to pay for the prep? Do you want to do the prep? Right. If it's like a big number, like I'm at 7 and you're at 4 and you're trying to bridge that. Yeah. I mean, you can change product, but really it's going to be like scope of work, right? Like, well, what if you guys do the power washing? And maybe you give them a little bit more off of the power washing than what the actual cost of the power washing is, right? But the important part, the really important part, and we can get into all the tactics of how to handle it and this and that. We could spend 12 hours on different objection handling strategies.
Yeah.
But what I want to get across to everybody is before you do the work to solve it, get the commitment that they'll go with you when you solve it.
So if we can get you a scope of work and quality paint job that you feel good about for that $4,000 mark, are you going to be ready to move forward?
Right.
Perfect.
And then when they say yes, then you work like hell to get down to that number or close to it.
Yeah.
I mean, in my experience, right, if you're at 7 and they're at 4, you can probably get them a little bit above 4. You could probably meet somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, well, rather than saying if I can get it to 4, say, hey, if we can get this number closer to what you're thinking, can we get you on the schedule?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's one of the things I love about paint. I mean, at the end of the day, if they were hoping for 4 and it comes in at 5.5, like most homeowners are going to be able to afford that. It's a little bit different if you're talking about a roof that came in at 60 and they were hoping for 40.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big gap that most people aren't going to have cash for. But most people
can you just not do my soffits?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so that's, there's all sorts of ways to cut the price down, right?
Yeah.
But the important part is always get the commitment that once you solve the problem, they're going with you. Now you're working together. And when you solve the problem, you're just like, cool, problem solved. Here's a contract. Let's go.
So what made you decide to go from running your painting and trades company to starting up some consulting and coaching?
For me, I don't want to do too much of like a tearjerker backstory, but I had a pretty like rough transition from youth into adulthood. And I ended up like dropping out of university, no idea what I was doing with my life, backed into construction by accident, and then found out, through a lot of hard work and a lot of good luck and coaching that I was able to really change the trajectory of my life because of my skill at sales and for what I was able to create and bring in. And I said, I know the power of sales on businesses and on individuals, right? Like you can't have a business without sales. Everyone's always selling, but specifically construction sales, that's the thing that I know better than almost anybody. And I was like, I want to help other people change the trajectory of their lives. I want other people to be making 6 figures in profit consistently. I want other people to have work-life balance where they can play with their kids or go on vacation or do whatever and still hit all their work goals, right? Like it was so transformative for me in the path of my life to go from a young vagabond, college dropout, no idea what I'm doing, to be like a successful business owner, homeowner with a family. And it came from construction sales, and I want that for other people.
Mm-hmm. So your I guess realization is that sales, having a good sales process and being good at sales in your business will lead to a better life outside of business.
Pretty much, yeah.
I can dig it. I can dig
right?
it.
And like if you book it, you'll produce it. Right. So anyone who's like an owner or an owner operator or whatever, thinking about not just the sales but the whole thing, like I can tell you right now, from managing like dozens of salespeople and different companies and organizations and this and that, like if you book it, you'll figure out how to get it produced. Right. But you have to book it. You have to bring in that revenue, the commitments. And that, it's the front end, right? You create that. And then somehow, some which way, you and your crew are going to get the, call in a sub or whatever, call in your buddy who also runs the paint. Like you'll find the labor, you'll figure it out. Pretty much the only time we couldn't was in 2020 when Sherwin-Williams literally ran out of paint. Other than that, if there is paint, then if you have jobs booked, you'll figure out how to produce them.
So how do people get a hold of you if they want to chat with you and learn a bit more?
I love it. Sweet. So yeah, gonna have a link down below in the episode notes for the homepage for our residential sales accelerator course. You can also visit www.wolfandwolf.biz, which is my company's homepage. There's a whole section on there about the sales course. Contact me either way through there. Would love to chat more. Probably the homepage in the link below will be the quickest. We're starting our own podcast, actually. It's called Big Pitch Energy. Hoping to bring you on as a guest at some point. And yeah, we'll be doing some free content, trying to get more tools out, show people, hey, this is how we can help. And then if you want, just like you, if you want to join the community, part of the community, more tools, more coaching, etc.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll put all those resources in the links below. And dude, starting the morning off with an hour-long chat about sales, good way to start the day.
Feels great, man. I really appreciate you having me on again. Thank you.
All right, dude. Good having you, Chris.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.